Today we'll be briefly analyzing the excerpt, Hurried Trip to Avoid a Bad Start. And I would like to have everyone's full attention, and I'm expecting everyone to be interacting with me when the time is right. And with that being said, I want to first start my presentation with a quick synopsis of the excerpt. So the article was featured in the National Geography magazine. It is written by two American geographers, Lila M. and C. Bishopberry. They are spouses, Lila M. being wife of C. Bishopberry. And it's a short account-ish kind of writing which explains their experience from going from Karnali to Nepalganj in Terai. And the excerpt doesn't really have very hard language or tons of literary devices. There's not much you can connotate from it. It's very superficial writing. And throughout the entire excerpt, there are different recurring themes. And before we talk about the themes, I want to have a little discussion about what the setting was like in the excerpt. So the setting firstly takes place in Karnali zone of Nepal, and from what I have read, and from what I know, Karnali is a very backwards society. From Nepal, there's not much education. People live in poverty, and people don't really have access to a lot of things. Personally, I don't know much about Karnali because I don't know much about Nepal in general. So, is there anyone here who's from Karnali or knows things about Karnali? Anyone? Anyone willing to tell me things about Karnali and educate all of us?
Definitely. Okay.
No one?
Anyone from Karnali zone? Maybe I have visited Sheeksha there.
Really? How was it like?
Yeah, I visited there for the training twice. And when I talk about Karnali zone, it is not as it has been written now because it was written nearly 30 years ago,
Right,
right?
it was written in 1971. So
Yes.
that's
So
almost
more,
20.
more than 30, nearly 45, 50 years around, yes.
Right.
So now the Karnali zone is still not developed, but the transportation is in the progressive stage,
Mm-hmm.
and the people have changed their mentality of going to school and these all. The superstitious beliefs are still existing,
Mm-hmm.
and likewise, for example, the Shilajit has still been processed by the people of Karnali zone,
Mm-hmm.
and they're now aware about the difficulties. But regarding the infrastructure development of that place, yeah, it has not been well developed. We can see the salt that we get when 20 rupees for a
Mm-hmm.
kg, they have to pay their nearly 100 rupees as well. And still, many things go there from air transportation. Besides, if we talk about the facilities, health sector facilities, and these all, yeah, many people are dying because of this problem. Sometimes uh, uh, people are not able to get cure in time, and they die on the way. And if emergency is there, they cannot have such transportation facilities, and they will have to charter the helicopter or let me say plane even. So it's still a tough life, but the situation has been changed, awareness has been increased, and the people though still have a kind of adherence to the superstitious beliefs. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Your story about health reminds me of this news article I read where it was about coronavirus in Mugu and how the schools weren't really shut down there. So in this village of Mugu, every single high school student got infected with the virus because they weren't following the CDC guidelines regarding the virus. So in general, what we need to know about Karnali is that during the time of writing, it was very backward and economically developing of a place in Nepal, and the people there mostly relied on agriculture and trade to earn their livelihood. And the second setting is Nepalganj, although we read it later in the excerpt, and Nepalganj is shown to be more developed with the how the writers talk about the roads and the carts there, and how their clothes and material you don't get in Karnali that you get in Nepalganj. So now I would like to start in-depth analysis of the excerpt, and we will be starting from the significance of the Chetri woman. There is a lot to unpack in this little encounter, so I would like to first present notable quotes regarding the Chetri woman, and I want everyone to read these quotes on your textbook, and if not, it's on the screen, and try to brainstorm ideas and common themes and factors that you see upon reading these following quotes, and we can go through them together one by one. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to brainstorm ideas. Also, please make sure to participate. It will get tiring for only the teacher to be participating all the time. So I do hope everyone else participates and is as interactive as possible, so the presentation goes entertainingly for both the teams. So now let's go through some points together. Is there anyone who would like to talk about some themes and ideas they've seen in these quotes before we dive into my side of the analysis? Anyone? Is there no one who would like to talk about their ideas? All right, so we're gonna go with my side of the analysis. So some few points you can discuss right now is the husband being absent, the patriarchy shown in this over incidents, the sadness, the loneliness, the societal norms that's portrayed with these quotes, the lack of technology, illiteracy, and how the woman is strong. So to give a brief summary of the incident, basically the travelers meet this Chetri woman who tells them that her husband has left to Nepalganj and she needs him now, and it's been 15 years since. So here how patriarchy has been portrayed is because during that time it was mostly the male of the family, the husband, the fathers, they were going out of their way to earn and make livelihood for their family. So obviously it's Karnali, and it was in 1971. So patriarchy, as Nepal is a very patriarchal society, it can be clearly portrayed with these quotes. And obviously societal norms of the man going to work while the woman stays home and looks after the children is also portrayed here. Sadness because it's been 15 years since and she hasn't heard from him. And she's now relying on the travelers for them to tell her about her husband's whereabouts without any hope, perhaps, that he is going to return back. And she can't go to Nepalganj herself, so the only way she can find out about his whereabouts are the travelers. And lack of technology and like literacy in general is shown as, I don't expect there to be mobile phones during that time, but then letters were pretty common, I'm guessing. But Karnali, being a backward zone, obviously had problems with the postal services, I'm inferring. And so the travelers, they were spouses, right? And the use of handsome Chetri woman, the specific use of handsome connotates some kind of bravery in the woman, some kind of resilience. And I infer that's because Laila M is a woman, right? And Siba Shaberi is her husband. And the reason why she sees the Chetri woman as so powerful is because she probably doesn't know how to imagine her life without Bashaf. Like, the thought of leaving her husband and not being with him for 15 years doesn't stand right with her. So to her, the Chetri woman is someone resilient, someone brave, and someone notable, and someone who has big significance that she wrote their encounter on the article. With keeping this in the back of our head, we will be moving on to the second significant encounter of the article. And the second important encounter is when the travelers meet people who had this tar-like deposit called SILAJIT. So before we dive into the story, SILAJIT is a medicinal deposit, and it's said to cure tons of problems and illnesses. And like our teacher said previously, people still sell it because of its properties, right? So the travelers encounter people going to Nepalganj with SILAJIT, and the reason why they weren't processing the SILAJIT as at home was because they said there is an incoming bad omen, and they can just process the SILAJIT in Nepalganj on the way to Nepalganj. But the travelers thought it was peculiar because they were willing to help them process it right in Karnali. So this is an important encounter per se because the excerpt originally obviously was not named Hurried Trip to Avoid a Bad Star, but our textbook, right, this tiny excerpt is named so. So it's very important for us to ask why. Why is the excerpt named that and not something else, right? So it's a question I want everyone to think about on the back of their head while we visit this later, because why is this the highlight of the excerpt? Why is it called this and why is it not called, perhaps, I don't know, handsome Chetri woman, powerful woman, environment in Nepal, Karnali, and environment. And so this shows us that Karnali has been a very superstitious place. I am guessing Nepal during the time of writing was overall superstitious. And it's always very interesting to know superstitions, like why a bad star? How is a star good and bad? Like, it's just a star, right? It's just a heavenly body in the space. Why do people hold such significance to a star and how they evolve their entire day around the star is very interesting. And as someone who didn't really grow up in Nepal, I don't believe in superstitions myself. nor does anyone in my family. So I find it really peculiar and very interesting why people have such importance and how they pay such attention to superstitions. So there are various ways we can interpret the question below. Like we can spend minutes and hours discussing the ideas. So I would like to visit it later towards the end so we don't spend a lot of time on this slide. Moving on, our third encounter mentions deforestation and makes us open to more information about Karnali. Here, the travelers meet women who are cutting branches of the sal tree to feed their goats. And when asked upon, they say they have to do what they have to do to feed their goats. So here, like in my opinion, this encounter is not as significant as the ones we have visited before, because it puts an emphasis on the themes and ideas we've just discussed earlier, which includes illiteracy, so how people don't understand the importance of nature and how they don't know that we are here because of nature, and without nature, mankind wouldn't survive. And it also shows us that people in Karnali had to do anything to make a living. And by anything, it means anything, even if it means destroying their environment, destroying nature. Here we can see that they're finding a temporary solution for something permanent. Here, the problem initially is their goats being hungry. But what they're doing is cutting down trees, which has lifelong impact on Karnali and its people, and will expose them to natural disasters like soil erosion, landslides, and flooding, and tons of other problems that they aren't putting in account right now, because their main focus is how to feed their goat and how they can make their goat alive. And so we can with this we can really see Karnali was not a very educated place. It wasn't an educated place in the time of the writing, right? People didn't care about the environment. They were superstitious when it comes to very inconvenient things, because it would have been way more convenient processing SILAJIT on Karnali rather than doing it on their way to Nepalganj. So as this slide is not very significant in my opinion, I will not put an emphasis on it personally, but we can always put these points in the back of our head, because the entire theme of the excerpt is what Karnali was like, how it affected their experience, and what they think about their experience in Karnali when they spent 15 months on it, traveling Nepal by feet. Our last important encounter is when they get in Nepalganj. So this is the first time Nepalganj is introduced in the story as a place where they've been. And obviously the writers have made it clear that Nepalganj is not like Karnali. There are goods, they can buy clothes, they can buy tons of new food, they can buy distillery equipment, and the people, there are roads, and people don't have to rely completely on agriculture, and they can go do trade and such as well. In Karnali, we were shown that they had to climb bridges, they had to climb hills and such. But in Nepalganj, they mentioned carts, bullock carts, and roads, showing the development variation. So in this incident, they're in Nepalganj and they see people selling SILAJIT and herbs and other things they've bought from Karnali. And what they're doing with the money is buying clothes, they're buying distillery equipment, they're buying things they don't get in Karnali, so they can take them to Karnali and they can sell them there. One of the more important instances here is Karma, who spent all his money on a distillery equipment in hopes that he'll distill alcohol in Karnali and make money from it, and then we'll move on to selling clothes and such. Like I've mentioned before, Karnali has been a very backward society. So people are doing what they can here so they can buy very little things and take them to Karnali and sell them there for bigger profit margins. And with this concludes the main points of the excerpt. And now I would like to go back to the question. Why is the excerpt titled Hurried Trip to Avoid a Bad Start? Why is it the highlight of the article? Highlight as in our textbook picked it as the title. Why is that so? Is there anyone who would like to give their 2 cents on this question? Anyone willing to tell us what they think why the title is Hurried Trip to Avoid a Bad Start? Is there anyone?
Yes, please. Please write down. Either you can write down in chat box as well.
Yeah, that's fine by me too.
Yes.
I can't read the chat box. Do you mind reading the replies for me?
What was your question?
The
The
question
question
is,
is written there.
right, why the title of this excerpt is Hurried Trip to Avoid a Bad Start? Why is it not something like Karnali and its people? That would have been more of a fitting title, but why did our book, because the original article is obviously not named that, but why did Heritage of Words pick this as the title for the excerpt? Obviously, there has to be some sort of significance of why it was called so. And I want everyone's opinion on it. And it's all right if you're having problems with the question, because there's so many ways to interpret it. There is no correct or wrong answer. There's just opinions and ideas. So please don't back down from answering this question or giving it a couple thoughts. So no one has opinions regarding it? I'll give it my 2 cents. I think it is because, well, obviously the writers are non-Nepali people, and in countries outside of Nepal, I would say Western countries, they don't really hold much superstitions. Like I said myself, I don't believe in it, and I think the main part of why I don't is because I wasn't raised here. I wasn't raised in Nepal, so obviously Nepali superstitions are very peculiar and interesting to me because they have no explanation as of why people believe in it. And I think the writers being non-Nepali really adds on to why this is a highlight. I can imagine the writers being really baffled and puzzled by people not doing certain things because of the stars, because that's the last thing Western people actually put into account while starting their journey or when they're doing things. But like I said, everyone has their own way of interpreting it. I just thought it was a very interesting question and something we had to look on. And with this ends my presentation. While you guys read this question, I would like to welcome any questions that you have for me or comments and such while you guys read this question and prepare the answers. Thank you.
So any questions or comments from your side?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
I want to ask something, sir.
Go
Please,
ahead.
please. Sanjay ji.
There's a sentence initiating with a handsome Kshatriya woman. I'm
Mhm.
confused, sir. Why is it called so? Does it mean
Okay.
for a strong woman or what?
Okay.
So
Its answer will be given by Sheeksha ji. Earlier, she said it has a connotative meaning, right? Sheeksha ji, over to you.
thank you. So again, I would like to go into there's various ways to interpret this. Firstly, in Nepal, I've noticed that people don't really use handsome for women. They use beautiful, right? But abroad, it's not really like that. We use beautiful for men, we use handsome for women. So if you really think about it, it's nothing that significant. Although looking at the context, it is significant because handsome connotates a lot of things, patriarchally, obviously. But handsome connotates that she's a resilient woman. She is brave, she is strong, and she, without having her husband, is emotionally so strong that she has been living her life without any difficulties. And just the resilience, I think the resilience, see, if the writer would have used beautiful, that would have mostly connotated to her appearance. But when she used handsome, it connotates to what she was like. She's fierce, she's her own person, she's independent, she's doing something that Lila Miller could have probably not done. Like, I'm assuming that Lila M has a really hard time thinking about what it would have been like without Basha Berry, who's her husband. So that's how I've interpreted it. I hope you get it, Sanjay.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
it. Thank you.
No problem.
Great.
Any other questions?
No, any.
So here, it's the same question our teacher discussed before. It's in our textbook itself. It's on page 42, if I recall correctly. And here, it just asks us if Kernali is the same now. Has it developed? And our teacher has already answered the question for us. So yes, it has
Okay.
developed in a lot of ways, but obviously the mentality will take a lot longer to change and develop. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time in listening to my analysis.
Sheeksha ji, can you please go to the first slide?
Yeah, sure. Mm, this one?
Great. Okay. Uh, Friends, do you have any comment for Sheeksha ji? In fact,
Our English
no
is
one is.
too great.
Yes, please. Okay, okay. Please go on, go on. Yes, please. Someone is speaking earlier. No. Okay.
Sir, I
So,
wonder about her.
uh, yes, Vivek.
Sir, I wonder about her English.
You wonder means you puzzled. You got puzzled.
Yes, sir.
Now, Uh,
So
Vivekji,
where did I want to ask? Where did she study?
so you will ask it later on also. Maybe she will answer it. So better we we not go for this. There are certain sort of ethical considerations we may not ask like this. So personally, she's your friend, and you'll ask her. Uh, all right. Okay. So Shikshaji, I could just say one thing. Uh, your presentation is, I have a thought without language to express my comments on your presentation.
Mhm.
The slide preparation, wonderful.
Thank
The way I want it, in the same way you have done it, because the
you.
chunks you have written, phrases you have written, and then you try to elaborate these all. This is the best part. I loved it.
Thank
Next, the presentation was the amalgamation of mixture of both pictorial form along with the words, right?
you. Mhm.
So it is a very good point. I could say the plus point there.
Thank
And third thing, the critically presenting the ideas is the biggest challenge for we people, because in case of Nepal, what we do is, we know about what the thing is, what the particular matter is, but we do not know how that has been done. So we're lacking in case of how answers. What we are very good. So you have done it what and how both together. So I love the way you presented this as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And another thing,
Mhm.
I felt very delighted. I felt really gaga when you just try to use some, you try to use some figurative terms. You just represented the term with the connotative term. These some sort of metaphors have been used to represent the women, and you clearly stated all the ideas. And one thing you might have added there, that was why the Karnali zone has been linked to the lowland region of Nepal. And what is that lowland region? Yes.
Mhm.
So this is the typical question that has been asked time and again in
Right, I
examination as
saw it
well.
in the
Okay.
textbook.
Okay, you will do it. Otherwise, again, I'm saying I have a thought without language to comment on it. Well done. Congratulations, Shikshaji.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. So I expect a recording is there. So may I request both Samirji and the Shikshaji, please send your slides along with the recording to my email. Do you have my email ID?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, please send your recording plus your slides to me. And I just want to keep them in one record of NIST YouTube site I'll create, and I'll keep there. All right. And you got the ideas regarding why hurry to avoid the bad stars, and what does it mean? What does it indicate? These all things you have answered well. Of course, everybody knows now. Hurried trips here typically indicate superstitious belief. What they feel is that bad star here means the evils, and they assume or they believe that these bad evils may influence their work. That's why they wish to carry out the work fast. Got it? So to avoid the bad evils, or to avoid the influence of bad evils, they carry out their task hurriedly. This is what the crux of this title. Got it, everyone? Okay, so we have just 5 minutes remaining, and the wonderful time, wonderful presentations from two people, two students, and this is how I wish to see other students presenting days ahead. And the slides you'll be preparing in a way she has prepared. So you've done wonderful, everybody, everyone, active participation. But questions are not bigger. I mean, answers are not bigger. Questions are bigger. And she was just triggering you to ask the questions time and again. Nobody asked more. we can ask the questions only when you read. So reading is of paramount importance here. You need to read this, read the chapter, then you can question, you can just ask the questions as many as you can. And this is how the class becomes lively and interactive as well. And the learning, this is what the matter of the principle of sharing and caring as well. So knowledge sharing, everything we could do. So thank you all, and the two people remaining today, and next week those two people will present, and the topic after that will be presented by Deepika next week. Two people will present on the same topic, and the another topic after Hurried Trips Avoid the Bad Star will be presented by Deepika Pandey. Deepika, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so be ready for the next topic. All right?
Okay, sir.
Okay. And two people who are remaining will be presenting in the next class. I don't know when the class is, but be ready, and you can send your slides in advance to me so that we will have correction. Thank you so much. Have a productive time.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Bye bye, sir.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Okay. Please send your slides and recording to me. Okay. Have a good time. Thank you. So I'm enjoying these students, yeah. The way I have been teaching to my master's students and MPhil students, they are like this. So I would love to be with them for a long time.